Hi everyone, my name is Amity and this is Read by Amity, and today I'm much further away for some reason, even though I've set the camera up in the same place. So we're just going to roll with it. I am running very late with this video, but I don't really want to combine it with April, and I also don't want to just skip it. So we're just going to do it late, and that is my March wrap up video. So we're going to talk about all of the books that I read in March, which isn't many. And I also don't have many to hold up for you because they were library books that I had to return. I do have a library book still, but it's not overdue. And audiobooks or books that I read on my e-reader. So let's just get started. I've got a story graph here. So the first book that I read in March was Chlorine by Jade Song, and I rated this one 4.25 stars. This is like a magical realism horror literary fiction, and it is about a girl that desperately wants to become a mermaid, and she is in her high school swimming team, and she's dealing with the fact that she doesn't quite feel like she fits in with humans, with anyone on her team. She is always feeling like she is a different species. She thinks she's a mermaid before she becomes a mermaid, essentially. Yeah, so she's struggling with the fact that she doesn't fit in, and she feels like all of the issues that she is facing and she's watching her teammates and people around her face are only issues that humans face, and that her life would be so much better if she was a mermaid. And she is obsessed with mermaid culture. She's got this book of mermaid fairy tales that she's read to the point where it doesn't even have the ink on the pages, but she knows them off by heart. So it's very obsessive. There's a lot of yearning and longing from both Ren, our main character, to be a mermaid and to leave the human realm, and the people around Ren, who are not obsessed, who are driven to see her succeed and who love her as a person. And so the horror in this is both this kind of folky, almost fairy tale horror, because she is likening things in her real world to these mermaid folklores, but also like very intense psychological and body horror, because she will do anything to become a mermaid. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I think that it has a really interesting take on the way that eating disorders and the drive to be the best impact athletes, and especially like children in high school that are in athletic programs. So I really enjoyed what it had to say about that. But overall, I think it was just missing that little bit extra to push it over the line for me. I think that I wanted a little bit more from the subplot between Ren and Kathy, which is her best friend in high school. There was something going along there, and I wanted that to be pushed a little bit more. So it couldn't make it to the full 5 stars for me, but it's such a good book, and I think about it still to this day, and probably will for a long time. When I was writing my notes in my reading notebook, there were pages and pages of writing where I could have pulled a quote from any part of that page and thought it was phenomenal. Like I couldn't rewrite out the whole book, so I struggled really to find like my favorite quotes and stuff from that book. So that's Chlorine. The next book that I read was The Cutting Garden by Darcy Van Polgeest and Erin Connolly. And this is a horror graphic novel that I received from NetGalley and the publisher to review. And this one I rated 2.25 stars. It was it had a great premise and the art style was phenomenal, but it just felt like the the timeline of the plot slowed down in all of the wrong places, and we ended up getting stuck in these moments that felt like nothing should have been happening and we were just hyper focusing on it. So unfortunately for me, that really impacted my enjoyment for the book. Yeah, I felt like we would just be going along and then there would be a moment where it could have just been a fleeting thing that happened and we would zoom in on that and spend pages in that moment and then come back out and completely gloss over something that I felt like could have been focused on more. So that did definitely hinder my enjoyment for that one. But I am very interested in the illustrator of this book and if they do any other work and what else they might have coming out, because I did find the art style really beautiful. The third book that I read in March was Magical Midlife Madness, and that was by K.F. Breen, and that was via Audible, via audiobook. This is a humorous romantasy. It's the first book in a what is so far 12 book series, and it was recommended to me by my aunt. It's her favorite series of all time, and I need to catch up on all of the things that she loves to read because she was the person that got me into reading, and so I want to, read things with her. We're always buddy reading together. But she swears by this series and she calls the characters in this series her best friends. So I had to start it, and I thought that it was quite funny and I'm definitely intrigued, but it does feel a little bit dated. It feels like it was written in the early 2016, 2015, even slightly earlier era, but it was written in 2020 and onwards, like it's still being written now. So um, yeah, there is. There are elements to it that feel dated. It's a little bit of a spoiler to say exactly what it's about and what I love about it because you don't know any of that going into the book, but essentially we're following a woman who is going through her version of a midlife crisis and she's left to look after this giant mansion in a small town. So she heads there and magical things start to happen and we're just following along while all of the characters that she meets interacting with her and they're getting into trouble. It was a lot of fun. I just feel like there are still so many characters that I'm learning about that I am not fully hooked yet. But I did just finish book 2. So I do have book 3 lined up ready to read at a later date and we'll see where we go from there. I might end up reading the full series, but I trust my aunt's judgment and it's her favorite series, so I have to give it a good shot. I did rate this one 3.75 stars because it was a lot of fun at the time. Um, and that's all I'm going to say about that. The next book that I read is A Sociopath's Guide to a Successful Marriage by M.K. Oliver, and this was an ebook that I received from NetGalley as an advanced reader copy as well. And this one I rated 3 stars. It was a lot of fun, and there were so many cheeky type things that happened in it. And I just thought it was a very clever mystery romp of a book, but it wasn't totally memorable. So I've read over 10 books since then, and I can't really remember anything stand out from the book that I absolutely loved. So 3 stars feels like a reasonable rating for me. This one is following Lala, who is a mum, and she is trying to get her daughter into this prestigious school, and she'll basically do anything to make sure that that happens successfully and that she gets everything she wants. So, if you're looking for a woman doing bad things for good reasons and crossing the line and pushing her luck, this is a great book for that. Uh, yeah, and that's what I have to say about that one. The next one that I read in March was Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews. This was the Cozy Coven Book Club for the month of March, And it does only have two tabs in there, but that's because I decided halfway through that I was going to start tabbing, and then I put the two tabs in and then decided to stop because I wanted to come back through and reread and annotate the whole thing. This one is about Evander and Laurie. It follows both of them plus a bunch of other characters, and again, there is a big scary, not scary, but a big ominous house and garden in this one, and there's a lot of uh, natural nature horror. And basically, Evander is living. The synopsis says that Evander is living like a ghost, and he essentially feels like he's not allowed to do anything. He's forgotten by everyone. No one wants a part of him. But then something happens, and he is the one that is driven to figure out the answers to this mystery. And off he goes on this adventure around the mansion to figure out what the hell happened and how to get to the bottom of it. And then Laurie is the co-star of the book, for lack of a better term, and there is a little bit of a back and forth between the two of them. There's yearning, there is heartbreak. It's just a beautiful book, and I think that the way that C.G. Drews writes horror and how she is able to pull insecurities out of these characters and use them in the way she writes horror is phenomenal. So I can't wait. I haven't actually read Don't Let the Forest In, so I can't wait to get to that one, and I will pretty much read anything CG Drew writes. And I rated this one 4.5 stars. After that, I read Hecate, the Witch by Nikita Gill, and this is a book in verse, so it tells an entire story. It has a plot from beginning to end, but each, instead of chapters, they are split into poems essentially and verse. So this was incredibly fun to read. I actually also got the audiobook for this and listened to it while I read because Nikita Gill narrates the audiobook, and there is nothing better than an author narrating their own work because they know exactly the cadence they want to read it in. They know exactly the way that it's meant to come across to the reader. So every time I see a book narrated by the author, I have to listen to the audiobook. But this has made me very excited to pick up Styx, which is her next book in the same sort of, not series, but in the same series essentially. I think it is actually a series, uh, and that is about the goddess Styx, and I think it's the river goddess of a river. Anyway, loved this. If you like that mythological fantasy, but with a feminist, poetic twist, definitely recommend this one. And I rated Hecate 4 stars. The next book that I read in March was The Hidden Life of Trees, a graphic adaptation by Peter Wolben, and it also is Fred Bernard and Benjamin Flower. So I assume that they are illustrators. Yeah, so the adaptation by Fred Bernard and the illustrations and color by Benjamin Flower or Flair. This literally changed my life. I cannot stop thinking about it. It's a library book that I need to return, but I've kept it for a little bit longer. It's not overdue yet, don't worry. But I just can't stop flicking through it and reading parts of it again. I love the art style of this and the color choices of this. Like, that is beautiful. You can't tell me that this is not beautiful. This is a non-fiction graphic adaptation of the book, the Hidden Lives of Trees, sorry, and it is following Peter through his journey and relationship with forests and bugs and uh, flowers and all of that sort of thing. Because look at that. As he realizes these things for himself about how important it is to preserve our forests and look after trees and nature, and how he realizes that trees are all connected, and everything that we do in life and everything that we see and look at relies on trees being healthy and alive and able to communicate with each other. And it's just beautiful. It's so, so good. I want to take this book and inject it into my veins. So this is obviously a 5-star read, and it's definitely my favorite read of March. And I'm probably going to read it again very soon. I really want to get myself a copy of it, but I'm thinking I also want to get a copy of the actual book so that I can read a little bit more in depth into this. I know that he's got a couple of follow up books as well that I might look at, but The Hidden Life of Trees is like his most recommended book, and I wanted to read the graphic novel over the book. Now I'm thinking I want both. So yeah, let me know if you've read The Hidden Life of Trees and if you think that it's worth reading. In the off chance that you've also read the graphic novel, let me know if there's much more that you could glean from the actual book over this one. But I highly recommend, if you're trying to get into nonfiction books, that you look for things like this with the graphic adaptation of things, because it's such a easy way to consume all of that really important information that you find in a nonfiction without the dense brick walls of text and information just being thrown at you. So, highly recommend both graphic adaptations of whatever sort of nonfiction you're looking to read, but also this one in particular, and this book in particular. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to recommend it now. I haven't actually read the book, but if it's anything like this, top tier, 5 stars. The next one that I read in March is Still Alive: Notes from Australia's Immigration Detention System by Safdar Ahmed. And this is an ex-library book. I got it at the library sale for $1. And I did see this doing the rounds on BookTube a few years ago when it first came out, but I actually never was able to get my hands on a copy of it. So when I saw this at the library book sale, I snatched that up straight away. This is both very on brand. This is this is both very relevant right now in the day that we in the timeline that we're living in, and also to me specifically because it is in Australia. So I definitely wanted to read this as soon as I could when I picked it up. This is essentially following Safdar Ahmed's experience when he visited the detention center, Villawood Immigration Detention Center, which is actually only about 50 minutes to an hour away from where I live, and basically is his journalistic story of his time there and how all of the people were coping with being there and what they had to say about the government and the experiences they were having and how they were being treated. And it actually like truly disgusted me. I'm not completely oblivious to all of this. I have been aware that this has been a problem for a long time, but it does often feel like, as just a normal everyday citizen, the most that we can do is talk about it and protest and share things that we learn, and that doesn't always feel like enough. So you know, it is difficult when you read something so impactful and that makes you feel so driven to be able to help and to know that it, or to feel like, maybe not know, but to feel like there is nothing that you can do. um yeah, it's a difficult feeling to go through, but I definitely enjoyed this one. I would say this is also a 5 star. It does feel weird to rate this because it is people's very, very serious and traumatic experiences. But in terms of reading experience and like the way that the content is shared in here and the art style, phenomenal. So I'll just show you. It's all in black and white, and it does feel a lot like a comic, but it has that more stylistic um, graphic novel element to it. So beautiful work, but yeah, very hard book to read. Very highly recommend it if you are interested in reading about the immigration experience, specifically in Australia. Then I read the fourth book in the Mortal Instruments series, which is City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. And this one I rated 3.75 stars. We're following we're following Clary in New York and all of the things that happen after the events of City of Glass. So I did enjoy this and I love being back in this world, but you know, after reading the clockwork books, what are they called? The Infernal Devices, it doesn't hit as hard as I thought it would rereading the second half of the Mortal Instruments. Not going into it because it is the fourth book in a series, but obviously it has been around for many, many years, so most people have read it by now if they're interested in reading it. Uh, this one is not quite as nostalgic as the first three books in the series, and because I'm reading them on a nostalgia basis, I do feel like I would rank it below the first three, but I do see Cassandra Clare's writing getting better as she continues on with this series, but I'm mostly just looking forward to finally finishing out the Mortal Instruments. This being now mid April, I haven't actually read book 5 in the Mortal Instruments, so I am falling further and further behind in my Shadowhunter Universe readathon that I'm a part of, but still getting into it a little bit. So, yeah, enjoyed it. It's just not my favorite of the Shadowhunter universe. And finally, in the month of March, I finished off the month on the 31st of March with Emma by Jane Austen. Now, I didn't just read this on the 31st of March and that be it. I started this on the 2nd of March and it took me the entire month to finish it. I thought that Emma was insufferable, and I'm not the biggest. The theme of the book is marriage and social class and gender, and I'm not the biggest fan of the way it was explored in this book, nor am I that interested in those themes aside from, you know, any sort of feminist elements that I can get from it. But it did feel like a core memory reading a Jane Austen book, uh, another Jane Austen book. I haven't read Jane Austen since I finished Northanger Abbey. So I'm just looking at her books. I still have Mansfield Park, Persuasion, and is that it left on my shelves? Yes, Mansfield Park. And yeah, so Mansfield Park and Persuasion to read, and I want to do a reread of Pride and Prejudice. Um, but that's all I have on my shelves to read. So it did feel like I had to read this because I do want to finish reading all of Jane Austen's work, but it wasn't my absolute favorite. I did have a good time reading it, and I want to actually go back through. I did switch to the audiobook for the last 150 pages, 170 pages. So I do want to go back through and continue my annotation, but I think I am going to drop my key down to only a few tabs because I had a pretty extensive key of things that I was annotating in the book. And I just didn't end up getting that much from all of those topics. So I am just going to drop it down to a few and then continue my annotations eventually at some point. I'm not sure when, but it's not a huge priority, but I am going to do it at some point. So, oh, just lost my tabs. So yeah, that wasn't my favorite classic, but I'm glad that I read it. And we were supposed to be moving on to The Count of Monte Cristo this month, but it's been a bit of a slumpy month. So I haven't tackled any classics this month because I didn't want to push myself further into a slump when I have big reading plans for the month of May, and I couldn't risk being stuck in a slump then. So yeah, that's the final book that I read in the month of March. So let me know if you've read any of these books, if you love them or if you hated them. Tell me what you read in the month of March, and if you have the means, go and pick up The Hidden Life of Trees because that book changed my life and I love it very much. And that's all from me. So I will see you all in a new video. Bye.